Father, be with
That's right,
you.
right, hitting live button,
Love
see
you,
what
and send them with us.
Okay.
And then you generate pages of numbers. These guys got the other.
Okay, good.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Dean Vallone. I'm the Lower Allen Township Board President. I'm calling this Lower Allen Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting of November 14th, 2022 to order. Proof of publication is available for this meeting. We begin our meetings with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. We'll pray. We pray this day to give thanks for all the many blessings bestowed upon our township. Watch over us who are entrusted with the administration of this township. Create in us the earnest desire to serve faithfully and permit us to experience the joys of noble service completed for our residents. Encourage cooperation from those who are served and from those who serve. Help us to use every willing service and every effort put forth for good government. Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance to help us as commissioners to make the right decisions. We ask that you aid our staff as they perform the daily tasks of running our township. And we request that you be by our first responders as they protect our residents and see that they return home safe at the end of each day. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome to our meeting this evening. My name is Dean Vallone. I'm the Lower Allen Township Board President. With me this evening from the board is Vice President Ed Black, Commissioner Jennifer Karen, and Commissioner Josh Nagy. Let the record show that Commissioner Kutz is absent with excuse this evening. And on that note, I would just like to quickly congratulate Commissioner Kutz for his recent election to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Commissioners, in our packets this week, we received 3 sets of minutes from October 3rd, our budget meeting, October 17th budget meeting, and our last October 24th regular meeting of the board. And so I'd like to take these one at a time when you're ready, if you've had a chance to go through them. I'd be seeking a motion on them individually.
Mr. President, if I may, before you start, I'm noted as attending your budget meetings. I was not in attendance, so just note that correction on your minutes of October 3rd and October 17th.
Okay. Okay. So, Commissioners, again, I'd be seeking a motion one at a time on these, and if you'll include on October 3rd, and October 17th, the solicitor's comments too.
Mr. President, make a motion to accept the October 3rd budget meeting minutes with the correction of striking the solicitor from attendance.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy. I have a second from Vice President Black. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd be seeking a motion on the October 17th budget meeting minutes.
So moved, again with the exception of removing the solicitor from the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy and a second from Vice President Black. Is there any discussion on the October 17th minutes, budget minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And then finally, it's the last set of meeting is from our October 24th regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
Second.
I have a second from Vice President Black. Any questions or any more discussion or corrections on the October 24th budget meeting minutes or regular meeting minutes? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next on our agenda is where we invite audience participation on any item that's on our agenda. At this time, you would let us know if you're here to participate on any item on the agenda, and when we get to that, we would have you come up to the podium. Is there anyone here this evening to participate on an item that's on our agenda at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to your president this evening. I have a series of items I'd be seeking motions on, commissioners, and we'll just start at the top. I'd be looking to accept the motion to approve the check register of November 4th, 2022 in the amount of $243,201.93.
Mr. President, I'll make the motion to approve the check register of November 4th, 2022 in the amount of $243,201.93.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Karen and a second from Commissioner Nagy. Is there any discussion on the check register? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, I'd be seeking to accept the motion to approve a manual check list for payment in the amount of $3,800 to Eckert Siemens, Churin, and Mellett.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
Second.
I have a second from Vice President Black. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, Mr. President, I'll abstain due to the payment to my law firm.
Motion carries 3-0 with one abstention. Mr. Manager, you'll make sure Commissioner Karen gets a abstention form.
Gotcha. We'll have more than one of these over a year's time.
I think that's acceptable because I think the purpose of the act was if it's something that's unusual, just state a reason, but I think we're getting the hang of what the reason is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have to take any action on a blanket?
Not right now.
Okay. Maybe at a later date. Next, I'd be seeking a motion to accept the retirement of Marshall F. Quartman, maintenance specialist with the Public Works Department effective January 31st, 2023.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
Second with regrets.
I have a second with regrets from Vice President Black. Is there any discussion or any comments?
Mr. President, I'd just like to wish him well in his retirement.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would also like to wish Marshall well, reading his letter to HR. I just appreciate his words of he thought the work that he did was, strenuous and tough at times, which is a testament of how hard he worked for us. But it was good. It was a good experience for him, and I can't thank Marshall enough for being here with us and serving the residents of Lower Allen Township for as long as he did. So, any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion regretfully carries 4-0. Next, I'd be seeking a motion to accept the retirement of John M. Eby, Building and Zoning Coordinator with the Community and Economic Development Department effective January 13th, 2023.
I would make the motion, indeed with regrets, to accept the notice of retirement of John Eby, who has served his township so well, as of the close of business January 13, 2023. And John, I wish you the best.
I mean, I can keep him from walking out the door before 4 o'clock. Right? You said close of business. So. Lock the door.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice President Black, and I have a second from Commissioner Nagy. And without a doubt, we all regret having to take this motion tonight, John. And we'll still get to have you here at least for a while through January, and we'll have probably some good conversations.
Maybe a roast.
Maybe a roast. But I'll tell you now, and I'm sure we'll tell you again several times over the next few months, how grateful we are for everything you've done for Lower Allen Township. And I don't think it's a secret that we can anticipate a wealth of knowledge leaving this institution. So, with you. So, did I call for the motion?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We wish you well. Next, I'd be seeking a motion to advertise ordinance 2022-06, manager's salary for calendar year 2023.
I would make the motion to approve this ordinance 2022-06.
Second.
For advertising.
I think we're the motions to advertise, but
That's correct.
Commissioner Black?
Okay, to advertise the ordinance to 2022-06 regarding the salary of our township manager.
Thank you. I have a motion from Vice President Black. Ms. Secretary, will you take a roll call starting with Commissioner Karen, please?
No, you don't have to.
This is just for advertising, right?
Yeah.
You don't.
We don't need to take the roll call
It has been,
tonight?
you take the action after the legal ad.
Okay, so I'll be seeking a second then.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you for that reminder. Next, I'd be seeking a motion to adopt Resolution 2022 R37, appointing Robert Griffin Jr. to the position of Public Safety Officer in the Public Safety Department effective November 28th, 2022.
I would make that motion, which is Resolution 2022-R-37 to hire Robert C. Griffin Jr.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice President Black, and I have a second from Commissioner Nagy. Is there any questions, Commissioners? I just have one question, and I appreciate all of the write-ups that came from both Captain Worth and Director Hall on this. Will you just explain how we came to the difference in salary? I'm not concerned about that because I thought I understand the reasoning. Was it just the difference between what we would normally offer a starting PSO?
No, he meets all the qualifications of the next level. So essentially, it was, we would hire him and we would give it to him anyhow, as soon as. But so it was just put him in at that position from the start.
Okay, and it had less to do with the geography.
Yes.
I kind of read it. I guess I was a little misunderstanding.
No, it had to do with qualifications and not.
Okay,
geography.
not quite the geography. I saw the language in there. I just wanted to clarify that. I appreciate that.
No.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda is where we allow the public to bring up any business pertinent to Lower Allen Township. We try to limit our conversations and discussions to about 10 minutes per person. If you're here to discuss any business pertinent to Lower Allen Township, we would just ask you, sir, to come up to the podium if you're here for something this evening. Or are you just here to observe? Yes, sir, excuse me.
I just want to take in the agenda, that's all.
Understood. Thank you. I thought perhaps you were here too.
That's all.
What's that?
I said just 30 seconds, that's all I want. Just to listen to you, that's all.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Everything is fine in my house, based on the Lower Allen Township, the municipality, what they do, and fully satisfied.
Well, thank you.
They do a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, we feel the same way. Thanks. Is there anyone else here this evening to discuss any business pertinent to Lower Allen Township? No? Seeing none, we'll move on to Public Works, to our Public Works Director. You have a few items for us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the first item I have on the agenda tonight is item 7A. That's just for discussion and possible action tonight. It's for the Sheepford Basin retrofit project. It's payment application number 1 from the contractor, Columbia Excavating, in the amount of $70,991.45. As you probably have seen from the memo, the project's 95% complete. We're holding about $6,000 for a trash rack and 5% retainage on top of that for the project.
Okay, Commissioners, this was explained in our packet this evening. Do you have any questions or comments?
Becky, this is the contractor that we didn't know, is that correct?
Correct.
How did they do?
Good, very good.
Good. Well, if no other questions, then I would make a motion that we approve this payment.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Vice President Black, and I have a second from Commissioner Karen. Is there any discussion or questions or any comments, Commissioners? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda this evening for discussion and possible action is a financial security reduction request from Arcona High Point Phases 1.1, 1.2, and 1.4. This would be for a new amount of $135,871.71, and then a new expiration date a year from today, which would be November 14th, 2023. They provided a itemized reduction request with all of the items and remaining costs for your review, and then I had a memo in the packet for your review and consideration. This was inspected, Commissioner Black. I know sometimes you ask me that, so I just thought I'd respond before maybe I jumped the gun, but this
That's
was
all right.
inspected.
I was gonna ask anyway.
This
so
was
you beat it for
inspected,
him.
okay, by township staff.
Right. And I think I've probably asked this a lot over the last several years, but I feel like I keep asking anyway. When we do these reductions, we make sure that we cover ourselves with a little padding for like inflation
Yes.
and things like that.
Yes.
Because sometimes these projects might get delayed and put out even further. And it's always good to know that the money will be there even if we wind up with something down the road
Absolutely.
that could cost more. Okay. So Commissioners, we'd be seeking, she's asking for possible action tonight on this, if we could get this rolling. For the
Make a motion, Mr. President, that we reduce the Arcona Financial Security High Point Phase 1.1, 1.2, and 1.4 to the amount of $135,871.71 with new expiration date November 14th, 2023.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
Second.
I have a second from Vice President Black. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item on your agenda is another discussion and possible action item for Arcona. Again, that's a financial security reduction request for High Point. This is Phase 1.3 to a new amount of $10,478.16, and then a new expiration date of a year from today of November 14th, 2023. This was also inspected by Township staff prior to recommending this release.
I'll make a motion, Mr. President, for the Arcona Financial Security Reduction High Point Phase 1.3, $10,478.16 with expiration November 14th, 2023.
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy, a second from Commissioner Karen. Any further questions, comments, or any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
And the last item I have for your possible discussion and possible action would be another reduction request for Arcona. This would be for High Point Phase 1.5 to a new amount of $302,411, and then an expiration date of November 14th, 2023. This was also inspected by Township staff with the included recommendation.
Make a motion, Mr. President, for Arcana Financial Security Reduction High Point Phase 1.5 for the amount of $302,411.00 for expiration November 14th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy, a second from Vice President Black. Any questions, comments, or any further discussion?
Mr. President, I just had a quick question. In terms of the timeline, it looked like the other two action items were a one-year time period, and this one is a one-year time period too. Although the new amount is larger than the other two, is 1 year.
That's what's required in our ordinance, and then we
Okay.
will revisit it before the expiration, and if we have to extend it another year.
You would extend
Yep.
it then? Okay.
Correct,
Perfect.
Commissioner.
Okay.
Satisfied?
Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. Any other questions, comments? I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Is that it this evening, Director?
That is, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thanks for the excellent narratives we get on these things in our packets, too. It's always so
Absolutely.
helpful to read this information so we have a heads up of what's going on before we get here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Moving on to Finance. Director Grove?
If the board is so inclined, it appears that the budget is ready to be put on the table and authorized for advertisement. I did hand out a corrected attachment sheet. This was the third page of the ordinance. There was a math error in the revenues less expenditure error line. It does not affect the budget or the bottom line at all. It was just kind of a typo. So that's corrected now. Since we had our budget meetings, there's really only been two changes of any note. We got our health insurance premiums, and that increased the budget some, and we got our workers' comp rates, which actually went down, so that decreased the budget some. But it is all still within line and pretty much as we had left it when we had our last budget meeting. As was noted during those meetings, there is no change to the tax rates or the streetlight assessment. The only significant change in there has to do with refuge fees, which increased to $76.14 a quarter. And that is solely relies upon our contract with our trash hauler, which we had bid several years ago and knew was coming. So I think we're ready to go if the board is.
So Commissioners, what we'd be seeking tonight is to just place the 2023 budget on the table for public view, and it's 30 days or 20 days?
20.
20 days, for 20 days. So we would take this up in...
You could do it in your first meeting in December or
Correct.
your second meeting in
Yeah,
December,
so
either
we
one.
have some time. We got through the budget in a decent manner this year, so. So commissioners, but if you have any questions about getting the budget on the table at this point, now's a good time to ask them. Otherwise, it'd be nice to get this going.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to place the 2023 budget on the table for public view and permission to advertise.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Karen, and I have a second from Commissioner Nagy. Is there any discussion, questions or comments, commissioners? I would just like to say thank you again to the staff for getting some really good, comprehensive information to the board throughout the budget season this year. It was very understandable, and we had some good discussions, and the department heads and the staff for coming in before us and answering our questions. We appreciate all of that, and I'm thrilled. We have another budget that does not raise taxes, and I'm somewhat proud of all of us in the last several years putting some guidelines in place like we did in 2019 with that resolution to give the departments some guidelines what their spending is going to look like as a whole, but then giving the flexibility to them. And I think that that's all helped in this process to make it more efficient. So thank you. And I'll also note, I believe we've asked every department head if they feel comfortable with, in addition with everything that they were able to achieve in this budget. And that's a good sign too, that everybody seemed content, as well as staying within the limits that we've been putting forward. So thanks again for that. So I do have a motion and a second on the floor right now. And if there's no other questions or comments, I will call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, moving on to community and economic development.
We were looking to enter into an agreement with Ritu for municipal engineering services. We have been through a selection process, and we received 5 different firms that submitted proposals. We had a committee that met and reviewed these. We whittled it down to 3, and we asked 3 to come in and interview for us. And after the interviews, we selected Ritu. They have provided a contract for us for tonight to get started. Although they have already actually been doing work for us. Our first planning commission meeting is tomorrow, so they've already done a good bit of work. Our solicitor has reviewed the agreement, and he has a couple comments. So we would be asking to have the contract approved with like a conditional approval that we could work with them on 2 items.
It's really just, and my only real concern is, like, a lot of these engineering contracts, they're limiting their liability to the cost of the contract, and I just think that it's in 5A. I just think that needs to be stricken. Ms. Tron's already reached out to them. They do have adequate insurance. It's just something that I think we need a little more heft behind the contract, and they certainly have the appropriate malpractice insurance coverage. I think it's $5 million policy limits, so I think we can work that out with them. So certainly think they do a good job, but my goal would be to get that at the contract.
And that's a point that is pretty standard, Steve, so thank you for bringing that up.
Sadly, it's becoming more prevalent, and at least they give you the out in 5D. They just said they may charge you more if they're removing that limit on liability, but without that, their indemnification and clause is not worth as much. So I just think that's a little concern, but I think we can work it out. So looking just for action with the solicitor and Ms. Tron's approval.
So I want to point out too, several months ago, the staff, let us know that a service like this doesn't need to go out for an RFP, but we asked the staff to put it out there and bring people in and just to add the level of transparency. So thank you again for that. I think the process probably worked as good as it could work, and you put together a committee. And Vice President Black, you're on the committee, correct?
Correct.
And can I just ask your thoughts on the decision, what you think?
Well, we agreed to the selected list. And after the hearing the presentations and discussing it among ourselves, it was a unanimous vote.
Oh, good. Okay. Super. Well, there we have it. So tonight, if there's going to be a motion, we would add in the motion that it would be contingent on striking 5A in the contract.
And I was going to say, suggest just so we can, if we need to negotiate, just make it contingent upon Solicitor and Director Trone's approval.
Okay. Got it. There you go, Commissioners.
I just had a quick question in terms of the contract period. So how is that term of 3 years determined? Is that?
From the time we sign it for 3 years?
No, I mean, how was it selected that it would be for 3 years?
I just picked 3 years.
Okay.
Again, we don't have to have I didn't want to have to go through and do an RFP every single year because it wouldn't be very useful, but I also didn't want it to have no sunset. And then in there, it has a termination clause that if we put in writing for prior to 7 days, we're able to terminate it ahead of that. So they're not on for 3 years if we want to get rid of them with cause. But
Okay.
if they are performing successfully, then we would like to keep them on for a period of 3 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Make a motion, Mr. President, that we enter contract for 2 for municipal engineering service contingent upon both the solicitor and Assistant Manager Trone's review for the liability.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
I will second.
I have a second from Vice President Black. Any further discussion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next, moving on to public safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. The first 10A is a discussion and possible action to accept the civil service eligibility list submitted by the Civil Service Commission. They met October 26. We presented a series of candidates to them, and you'll note by the memo that there are only 2, the third position, because the rules call for a list of 3. But because of the testing process in Cumberland County, we ended up with only 2. So we have Justin Hartzell as number 1 on the list, Robert Trich is number 2, and then the third position is vacant. And we would ask that the board accepts that list of 2 instead of 3.
Make a motion, Mr. President, to accept the civil service eligibility list.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Karen. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And then the second item, 10B, is a discussion and possible action for the conditional offer of employment as a police officer to Justin Hartzell, effective January 2nd, 2023. He's the number 1 on the list that you just approved. What was a little confusing is there were 2 tests in 2022. The first test was back in March, and that's the one that I think we only had about 79 applicants total on that in that testing process through the Cumberland County Chiefs, and we ended up with only 35 or so that had around 30 that had passed the test. So we're done with backgrounds. That's why we ended up where we ended up. Justin did very well in the testing and in the background, but there's a number of conditions. The board has approved that 27th position, but not until January of 2023. You'll recall that's the backfill position for the SRO that will be coming. And for the SRO to start in the school year in August, we have to backfill his position and have the position trained and all of the field training done. And Justin also does not have the academy. So he would have to go to the January academy to wait until the June, July academy. He would not be through the academy, much less through field training by the time that position would be assigned. So that's why we're asking for the board to approve it tonight, so we can get him into the academy in January. There would be a number of conditions, however, that would be with that. One is the budget passes, of course. So we know that the funding is there. Another one is that he passes the academy testing because he will have to take PT tests to get into the academy and a whole bunch of other different things that they will do. And then we will also, as a part of that, provide a physical test, a polygraph, a drug screen, and the other requirements that we have under the rules and hiring. So everything is, so it's not, even though the board would approve that tonight, which we would ask, it doesn't mean he's hired until, the academy would start and he has passed all of this testing conditionally. Mm-hmm. So.
The conditions, this is a general question I have, just thought of it just now. I think we've done these in the past with conditional offers. Are the conditions built in, Steve? Like with the budget and things like that? We don't have to mention that?
No, I think this one, I think that the director's right. This is a little unusual because I think you have background checks often, but I think this contingent on your budget passing is just the time of year if you want to have the individual start in 2023.
Yeah, he's passed the background. That's not the issue. The issue is once we give a conditional offer, he would have to have a physical to make sure he physically can accept the job, or we would accept him. And polygraph and other things are all routine things that we do. And at any point that you don't pass any of those, we can revoke the conditional.
Okay.
Director Hall, I know our last two officers, we also sent to the academy. Do we have a time commitment with that?
We generally do not.
Okay.
I'm not aware of a commitment that we were made for time-wise. Much of that is reimbursed. Almost 3/4 of it's reimbursed once they pass.
Okay.
We've not had an issue with anybody passing.
Okay.
Any other questions, commissioners? So the director is seeking some action tonight if we'd be inclined to offer it. So if we did, I'd be seeking a motion for this.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion for the conditional offer of employment as a police officer to Justin Hartzell effective January 2nd, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Karen, a second from Commissioner Nagy. Any further discussion, questions, or comments for staff or director? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And then the third item is 10C, and that's just a discussion item for Resolution 2022-R-38, Civil Service Rules Update. And you'll note that on the actual document in your packet, it shows a date of November 28th, 2022. So it's brought up tonight for discussion purposes. It's a 26-page document, and we know it just came with your packet, so it's not necessarily something you can, trunch through over the last, 48 hours.
Right.
So I will tell you, and this was a question that Commissioner Nagy had posed, there's nothing in this that the board has not already seen and or passed. There's nothing new in here. We would have brought all of these changes previously. There's a piece in here on disqualification factors that would have previously come to the board. Commissioner Karen, you would not have been there when that happened, so this would give you the opportunity to look at it. So I will answer any questions tonight, but it would just up on the agenda for discussion, and then it would come back up November 28th, hopefully for approval. It's a codification So it's just, instead of presenting a document that has at the bottom, modified on, it's everything all put back together in a single document. And the commission has looked at it, and the commission has approved it, and it would be before the board, but we can bring it up again on November 28th.
Okay. The only question I would have is if the solicitor has any comments on it.
I do not, because I think as the director said, it's really a restatement of current policy.
So we can see this at our next meeting,
Certainly.
potentially, yeah. Any other questions, commissioners?
Mr. President, I just had a quick question, just in terms of the rules and regulations. So how often are these amended or updated?
They're just by cause. We had the disqualification factors. We had a number of things that we thought were not accurate there in terms of drug use. So we had gone in and asked the commission to take a look, or the Civil Service Commission to take a look at those. Rarely, once you have a good codified document, do you need to do that unless law changes or some personnel procedure changes or something else. And the last I noted in the memo, the last time we did this was in 2019. So it does not happen often. And that would be all I have for this evening.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our township manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item I have on there is discussion and possible action. This would be on advertisement of amending our code section 23, which is intergovernmental cooperation, amending it to allow new agreements for intermunicipal services to be adopted by resolution. The solicitor and I have discussed this. Up until this time, whenever we've gotten into a new intergovernmental program of any type, we've just adopted a new ordinance and added an article to Chapter 23. Rather than do that, we're able to, if we state it as such in the chapter, we can just add these new agreements by resolution. So essentially, an agreement would be presented to the board would adopt it as a resolution, and we would be then, in that program with the other municipality. What brought this up is we just entered a purchasing cooperative. You remember just a couple of months ago. We have another opportunity for another purchasing cooperative coming up. Plus, as you'll see in a minute, a yard waste agreement with a neighboring municipality. These would both require ordinances, advertisement, et cetera, to enter these. So solicitor and I feel that the new procedures would just streamline things a little bit, not so clunky with all that. Oh, and again, this is for advertising the ordinance only tonight.
In this one, we would just, or maybe you already mentioned it, we would just need to advertise it only. We wouldn't have to hold a hearing.
This is just legislation, so no hearing required, so you're just advertising the ordinance for enactment, I guess, at your December meeting.
Okay.
With the legal avenue. And I agree, Nick, just if I can comment too, I've got the floor. If it's permitted by resolution and ordinance, I think it just makes a lot of sense. It's cheaper and more cost effective. The only exception to that, if you're doing something with council of government, you got to do it by ordinance. So we would do those sorts of agreements by ordinance. But as the manager mentioned, that agreement with Lemoyne would not require that, anything but a resolution.
Right.
And many others, like the purchasing co-op.
Make a motion, Mr. President, if no one else has any other questions, to advertise amending code section 23, our intergovernmental cooperation, by removing two subsections, deleting Article 5 and Article 13, as well as allowing for new agreements for intermunicipal services to be adopted by resolution.
Second that.
I have a motion from Commissioner Nagy and a second from Commissioner Karen. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. looks like we have two more items for discussion.
Two more items under me. The second one is a yard waste agreement with the Borough of Lemoyne. Again, we're in current program like this with the Borough of Sharmanstown, where their residents are able to bring yard waste to our facility. And this would be resident drop-off only. We're not talking about a commercial service or anything like that, and then bringing that in here. This would just be a place for their residents to drop off. There'd be a $10 drop-off fee per trip. Plus, they've agreed to pay us what I consider to be a commensurate share of our grinder costs. As you're aware from going through the budget, the grinder costs recently went up, and this is a way to offset that increase in fees. The proration is based on population, so that's how we came up with the number. And again, this would be adopted, or we would enter into this by resolution after the new ordinance is adopted.
Okay. Commissioners, I'm assuming everybody understands. I have a question that I guess it's not directly related to Lemoyne coming in to dropping things off, but all the yard waste that gets dropped off, including what would be coming from Lemoyne at this point, is it all just residential? Or is it businesses coming as well?
So we used to allow all kind of drop-offs there when yard waste was a little bit more in demand. It's not so much now. We implemented several years ago. There was a commercial permit fee, and also what do we call it, a contractor permit fee. Commercial fee was for commercial areas in the township who needed to get rid of yard waste from their properties. We're talking about apartment complexes, businesses, et cetera, et cetera. We also had a $1,000 annual fee for contractors, tree surgeons, that sort of business, to come in and dump their stuff. We ended up we dropped the permitting program for contractors because we were just getting too much stuff, and we couldn't. It was getting more difficult to process. We couldn't get rid of it fast enough, so we dropped that. Now we do not allow drop off by contractors, although we still allow drop off by commercial establishments within the township.
Okay, got it. And this would allow the folks from Lemoyne to do the same.
Yes, they would be able to bring loads up at $10 a pop, drop it at our site. Our folks would grind it up. It would also be available for them to come and pick up if they wanted to use the finished product.
Right, but right now our residents can drop for free, right?
Our residents can drop up to 4 times a year for free.
For the yard waste?
For the yard waste.
Got it.
After the 4th load, it's $25 a load.
Okay.
We did that. We had to do that because we had some folks that were taking advantage.
Right.
And they couldn't possibly have that much yard waste from their property.
There's a little landscaping on the side.
Little landscaping on the side, or getting rid of their, stuff from their mom's yard and whatever,
Gotcha.
Just bringing a lot of stuff in.
And then all of the stuff that comes out of the grinder, it just goes into the piles that we see over there?
That's right.
Okay.
We encourage people to come pick it up for their own landscaping needs, but we do have to call on a company every once in a while to come in and take some of it away.
Oh, okay. Okay. Understood. Okay. Thank you. That was good information to have.
Again, this is discussion only because we will be hopefully adopting that in a month or so after the ordinance is amended.
Tom, this proposed agreement with Lemoyne, is it going to require us to buy any additional equipment or hire any additional personnel?
No, not a bit. I don't anticipate all that much stuff. In fact, it's going to lower our costs because there will be collecting a fee from them that'll offset a bit of our grinder costs that we rent from the county.
Why do they want to come to us? Why don't they make an agreement with the county themselves?
I didn't get into it with Cindy. I don't know. I'm guessing they don't have the facilities for it.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion, commissioners?
Okay. Last item, discussion and possible action. This is 3T Security. This was brought up to the board a meeting or two ago regarding the door lock hardware that we have. That we have several panels right now that don't work simply because of their age. They came with the building, so they're 14 years old. Some of the panels are failing. We can replace the panels, but the door hardware is just as old, and we're afraid that, after we replace the panels, we're going to have to just start replacing the actual locks, the readers. And we did get this quote from 3T Security to replace all of that for $28,446. Actually, that's only 55% of it. The total amount for the project was $51,720.75. The amount that's being requested for payment tonight is the hardware. It's the upfront cost for them to order the hardware.
And I think I read somewhere in here that they're going to order the hardware, receive it, and in respect for the payment, they're going to store it here.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you recall, commissioners, at I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, we gave staff direction to go ahead and seek out these quotes. So with just a reminder, what they're asking now is just to kind of get it started.
Yes, correct. Get the project underway, get the equipment ordered.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to pay the initial invoice from 3T Security for the $28,446.41 for the hardware.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Karen and a second from Vice President Black. Any more discussion, questions, or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. I have nothing further tonight.
Before we go to Commissioner reports this evening, I'll just point out that we will go into executive session after Commissioner reports, and I'm curious, Mr. Solicitor, if there's any expectation that we would have to come out with any action?
Quite frankly, I'm not sure, because it's not my items.
I'm going to say no, not tonight.
Then we'll be, after Commissioner reports, we'll adjourn to executive session. And I'll start this evening with Director Davis.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Maybe.
Well, I have to admit that even though I made it well known that I expected to retire when I reached Social Security full age, and even though I wrote and submitted a letter of resignation, I kind of had a surreal moment over the weekend when I read the agenda packet and I was on it, because it's been a long haul. So if in the future the board or the staff is seeking citizen volunteers for a study or survey or a project, and my subject matter expertise would be useful, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And we know you're still going to be around on the Development Authority for that term. So,
That is a pleasure.
yes. Director Grove?
Nothing else tonight, thanks.
Ms. Greenwald? No. Tom, anything else?
Nothing from me.
Director Trone?
So we have a closing scheduled for Unit 3 at Lower Allen Commons on Thursday. That would be the final piece of property that we own at the Commons. Unit 3 is what has Trader Joe's and Apricot Lane and Sports Clips and the Good Feet on it. So if we were to close that, we would have sold everything out of the Commons. That being said, we have had 5 amendments to that agreement of sale, delaying the timing of it. there's a lot of shuffling around right now of documents that need to be prepared for Thursday, so that's a good sign, because prior to that, the closing, that wasn't happening. So the chaos is a good thing, but I will let you know on Thursday whether it goes through or not.
Thank you.
Sure. Why did turn it off and then pass it to you?
Director Hall?
I think the board's already aware of this, but I'll just mention, there's been discussion about the school district hiring security officers. They have finally done that. There's 3 of them, one for the Redland area and 2 that will be here, one possibly our middle school or else our middle school and or the middle school in New Cumberland and also at Cedar Cliff. They are all previous law enforcement officers. They will be dressed appropriately in gray attire with security on their back so they're readily identifiable. They will be carrying those weapons exposed. So everybody knows that they are armed. And Tom Ryan, who's responsible to supervise them, is also an ex-police officer from Harrisburg City. We know Tom well. We work with Tom very well. And there's been discussions about the communications piece and how if there's an incident we would communicate, because that's always the biggest failure. So there'll be some meetings in the future, but I believe today was their first day, and I haven't heard anything today. So we'll be following up with Tom to make sure that everything is dovetailing and fitting in. But we also will be introducing our school resource officer to them, as well as the department at some point. So we are, all working on the same page and singing off the same sheet of music. But it's good to see that the plan is moving forward and everything's lining up for a SRO launch at the beginning of the 23-24 school year. So thank you. That's all I have.
Good to hear. Thanks. Mr. Solicitor?
Just want to offer my congratulations to Mr. Cortman and Mr. Eby on their impending retirements, and certainly we enjoyed working with John. And I'll note for the record that John's resignation letter had considerably more words than Mr. Cortman's.
I have almost 38 years of words.
I know.
Sorry, John. Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Karen?
I just wanted to say I recently attended the Lisburn Fire Festival Community Day, and it was a wonderful experience again for my family. And I just want to say thank you for all the volunteers who put that together. And it was truly a pleasure to attend that day. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Vice President Black?
Director Hall, going back to the security officers for the school district, the information we got by email today listed where they had been trained, but you say they have experience also.
Yeah, they're former police officers and former Act 120. They had their Act 120 certification, yes. So,
But do they have time and grade actually on a police force?
I believe they all have. I mean, I didn't read it meticulously, but I think I was under the understanding that they all were former police officers. When you get Act 120, you have to serve somewhere to have the number activated. So I would think that at some point they did. I don't know what their careers entailed, but they have, and they also all. Tom also had said, Tom Ryan had also said that they all attended the SRO training school as well. So they will have the same training that our SRO does. They just don't have arrest power.
Okay. Well, that brings up another question then. If they have an event at one of the schools, will our school resource officer have arrest powers to assist them?
Absolutely, but depending upon which school it is, if they're at the New Cumberland Middle School, they'll get the first response from New Cumberland PD. If it's in our jurisdiction, they'll get response from our PD to essentially assist them or back them up and make whatever arrests are necessary. In Redland, it'll be Fairview Township.
And the former Harrisburg police officer, is he going to be full-time?
He has been full-time. That's Tom's position, is for school safety.
Okay.
So he just has absorbed this as an additional responsibility.
Well, it's a matter that's hot on everybody's mind right now, and that's why I'm asking these questions.
Right. Yep. And there's, we'll have to, we already know we're going to have some discussions about policy, procedure, and integration, because, the last thing we want is those officers to be out there as an island. We need to integrate with them and work with them very closely, and I'm sure that will happen. They're new, so they have their own onboarding that they have to do, but our officers will work with them very closely.
Well, I thought in the agreement that we saw from the school district, the school district integrated our school resource officer pretty well, too.
Yes. Yep.
They want that person to actually work with the students.
Yes. Yeah. That is the SRO training involves what they call the triad. So it's mentoring, it's education. Enforcement's only a piece of that. It actually is also assisting with teaching and some counseling and among students. So it's actually a pretty strong program, and that's what's practiced across the state for the SRO programs.
Good. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner Nagy?
I just want to say thanks to Mr. Cortman and Mr. Eby for their years of service, and to those who follow them, may they be as dedicated and long-lasting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Captains, anything this evening? Okay. I would also like to send my regrets to take down these resignations tonight. Mr. Cortman, again, thank you if you happen to be watching tonight. If you ever got to meet him, there's a story, the first time I ever met him, it was the first time I had come in to, I think it was the picnic after I started my first term. I didn't really know a whole lot of people, and I had come around the corner. I stopped over at the Exxon gas station, I guess to get gas or something, and he was there in his Lower Allen shirt and I was coming over to the picnic and he was right before me or right after me, and I just said, hey, go ahead of me. And that, obviously I knew he didn't know who I was. I didn't even know who he was. I just knew he had a Lower Allen shirt on, assumed he was an employee. And he goes, well, thank you very much. And then when I came in to get my food, he's like, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Dean Vallone. I'm one of the new commissioners. He goes, oh, why didn't you say so? So if you know him, but what a wonderful man to talk to and to be around. But to just read his letter and how much he appreciated the hard work, but how rewarding it was, that's just a testament about keeping employees here. And I really wish him well. And John, yes, I mean, again, you're going to be so missed in this township, your wealth of knowledge. And I'm just glad that you get to stick around on the Development Authority, and you're going to be a resident indefinitely. So, yeah. So maybe we'll have a roast coming up in the next few months. I also attended the Lisburn Fire Company's Community Day. What a great event. What a great event. They had, in fact, thanks staff and everybody for sending apparatus and that over, and the Public Works machines and trucks showing that stuff off. A cool event. My wife and I had the privilege, they asked if we would sing the national anthem when they did a dedication at noon to the service members, both veterans and public safety service members. So my wife and I had the privilege of singing up front with them the national anthem, and so that was just a really good day and a great event for the community. I hope Lisburn continues to have that event. I also had the privilege of going over to the, I guess it was a soft or after opening kind of reception for the, we were all invited to the Spring Hill Suites, the new hotel over by Trader Joe's. And we got to welcome those folks in, and to hear the management, the development management, the management itself, and then the owners, and hear from a lot of their investors how grateful they are to us here at Lower Allen Township for sticking it out with them and how well things went, considering we went through a pandemic in that process. But the words they had for Director Trone were just amazing. And we know these things, but I can't help but brag on you a little bit. And Tom and the rest of management and staff who helped make all that come together. And so if I would just say to the public, if you have a chance just to walk in their lobby, it's a great design. It is something different. I didn't realize the room layouts and what they would be, but I think there's 124 room hotel, and they were pretty confident they were going to be sold out over the weekend, and that they're in their first month they're hitting over 50 to 70% capacity on average. So something good, really good. In fact, the one, I don't know if he's the CEO, I forgot his name after he gave his talk, he was pretty much saying, and if you have another parcel around, folks, we're ready. So they're ready to build another one. But that was a very good event. So having said that, I'll just say thanks again to all of our staff, management, all of our employees for doing such good work here in Lower Allen Township. We always hear good things, and we are very grateful. So thank you. I'm going to adjourn to executive session to talk about 2 items, including